What we end up doing is we create this unfair pressure for Christians that the only way that you can be a good Christian is by living a certain way. We paint this image, hey, marriage is good, and staying single, that's bad. We're in week 2 of our series, It's Complicated. You know, there's this kind of a dad joke phrase that I always say whenever we're helping people along or you know, just having to interact with people. My overall thought is, man, ministry would be so easy if it weren't for all the people, right? Interacting with people makes life just harder. It makes it more complicated. And so as we're going through this series, we wanted to talk through just how do we have relationships with our spouse? How do we have relationships with others? And it's funny because at Planning Retreat, we planned this series, and then at Next Gen Takeover, Sam really started the series going about how to love, how to walk in love. That was really week 1, it felt like. And so we could easily say this is week 3 of learning about relationships as we go through, and we're just going to learn, how do we love better? How do we live healthy relationships, not just in our marriage, but just in general as well? But before we really get into the message, can I just give a little humble brag for a moment? I really feel that I am killing it these days as a dad, all right? I think I'm doing a pretty good job. And my kids, Levi and Eloise, they recently came to me and they told me, hey, you know, all of our friends have a Nintendo Switch, and like they're really fun. We'd like to have a Nintendo Switch. And we're like, oh, okay, like we'll think about it. Then they came to me again, they're like, hey, like school's asking that we have some tablets. Could we get some tablets? Like everyone they know has a piece of technology that is there, that is just it's the coolest thing. Dad, could we please get something as cool as a Switch or as a tablet? And I'm just killed it. So I found this and I brought this for them. Just an exciting gift for them to have. I don't know who the gift was more for, but I was so excited. Hey, if you're gonna get a Switch, if you're gonna get an iPad, then you have to suffer as I have suffered. You have to go on the same journey as me. You need to know the pain of putting a game in and it's brand new, but you gotta take it out and blow in it first and put it back. Like you gotta know the pain. Everything's just on demand for our kids all the time. And this thing is sweet, all right? This thing has auto tracking built into it. When you put it in, if it's fuzzy, you just wait a minute. It'll fix itself. It's got 2-speed rewind. Like this thing is amazing. And so we set it up, and I thought they'd be angry about it. But my excitement was just through the roof. Like I couldn't believe we got this TV. And so we set it up. We plug it in. I got them about 15 of these. Goodwill has a whole bunch of VHS movies. And so we get it, and we get the movie in. I say, hey, Eloise, just put it in, hit play. And she says, oh, it won't go in. And she says, what's play? Is that the YouTube button? And I said, yeah, play's the YouTube button right here. We push play, and immediately we realized some jerk 20 years ago didn't rewind this VHS. And so, all right, I don't want them to learn about that pain yet. They're not gonna be interested in the pain if we do that. And so let's just pick another movie. So we put that movie in, and the sweet moment happens. The sweet sounds of marketing as we see the previews start to play. And I'm lit up as the previews start to go. I remember all of these playing, and it's just, I feel like that's interacting with my microphone. I can hear it freaking out. The technologies don't line up. And I was so excited because it took me back to realizing that as a kid, getting a new VHS and seeing the previews at the beginning, that was the only way I knew what else was coming out, what else was going on. We didn't have Facebook or Instagram to be told like, hey, you should watch this, hey, stay away from this movie, it's not good. All we had to go off of was the previews. And me watching these previews, I would go from never knowing that this single movie ever existed to feeling like I can't live without this movie. I need this movie. I just see one trailer. I need this movie. And that's the sign, right? That's the sign of a good preview that shows exactly what needs to be seen to get someone to think, man, I gotta have that. Now, like it or not, you're a walking preview. Like it or not, you're a preview. When God made you, he made you in his image. He made you. He made all of creation. And then he placed man in the middle of creation, man and woman in the creation, and said, man, this is a preview of me. So when he made you, what did he make? A good preview. A good preview that lives, that shows creation, that shows all of creation. Man, I gotta have that. And so as we walk in our life, we need to realize, like, this is what it is. That's a pretty wild thought, isn't it? A good Christian is meant to be a perfect preview of God's love. But the problem that I see is when we start to think about, plan out, how does a Christian walk out a perfect preview of God's love, that image that points back to him? Sometimes I think we point a little bit more often to a stereotype than we point to Scripture. We think through the stereotype of what a good preview of God is, and we don't really look at Scripture. We have a bad theology of what it means to live out our lives as a preview of God. And maybe you've seen this, but there's this underlying belief in Christianity that these are the steps to be a good Christian. Step 1, you get saved. Step 2, you get married. Step 3, you have little Christians. And step 4, the process repeats. This is really like the world domination approach to Christianity, right? Like, we will just keep populating and we will make it happen. Like, it solves so many problems. I don't have to talk to my neighbors. That might just get them saved. I could just have 4 kids and bam, like, that's great. I'm making ripple effects in my life. It could save a lot of issues, but I think it's a lot different than that. This pressure of following these steps: get saved, get married, have kids, and make them the new disciples. And this pressure isn't really even just within Christianity. I remember as a kid, my grandfather would always remind me of my life's purpose. He would come up to me and say, "Hey, Jeremy, just so you know," he would say this probably monthly, "just so you know," as if I didn't yet, "you are the last Arsenault. If you have no kids, everything dies with you." And I, loud and clear, I get it. My job is to get married, have kids, and pass this name along. It became part of what it was. Singleness was never really even an option for me. It was never an option, but honestly, I was never really that good at it, being single anyway, so it kind of worked out that I was led in that direction. But what we end up doing is we create this unfair pressure for Christians that the only way that you can be a good Christian is by living a certain way. We paint this image: hey, marriage is good, and staying single, that's bad. That's not what we want to see. And there's just this pressure. And that's, honestly, it's not even a good biblical view of either of the statuses. If we think being married is just about having some kids, passing our name down, that's a shallow and unfinished view. And if we also think that being single is just something we get stuck with because we didn't find the right person, that's a shallow and unfinished view of singleness as well. Here's just the truth. Every moment, every season, every status is a preview of God's glory. And so it works out a little bit like this. Marriage mirrors the gospel, and singleness anticipates eternity. Marriage mirrors the gospel, and singleness anticipates eternity. Now, living your life out as a preview, you have to understand the deep meaning of the status you're in right now. This is a better and more biblical way to view marriage or singleness, is to see them as what I'd call signs and wonders. Right, let's get off the preview analogy and think about a sign and a wonder. Throughout the ministry of Jesus, he would do two things. He'd do two things. He would teach and declare that the kingdom of God has arrived. And then what would he do to make people understand what the kingdom might be? He performed signs and wonders. Signs and wonders like healing the sick, prophecy, and even freeing people from demonic possession. All these things, they're not just done to make a better life for people. They're not just like, hey, Jesus is here, he's healing, so you can just be happy right now. That's not why he was doing it. He was doing a sign and a wonder to reveal, hey, here's the eternity you have to look forward to. Here's a taste of what the eternity that you're going to be in is going to look like. And this is really cool, because Jesus even told us we would do more and greater things than these signs and wonders. And yes, through his power, I wholeheartedly believe that we can see the sick healed. We can speak out prophecy over people's lives. We even see demons leave. We see people freed from demonic possession. But God also wants you to live your life as a sign and wonder of his goodness. So that first one, let's just dive into it a little bit deeper. Marriage that mirrors the gospel. Matthew 19 reads like this. He says, one day the disciples of John the Baptist came to Jesus and asked him, why don't your disciples fast like we do and the Pharisees do? Jesus replied, do wedding guests mourn while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, then they will fast. The New Testament actually very often compares the arrival of Jesus, the arrival of the Messiah, with a wedding. It's the same type of idea, this idea of a long waiting period, a moment that you've prayed for, planned for, and just thought about for so long, and then it's finally arrived, it's here. And Jesus here, he even is referring to himself as the groom, and he calls the church his bride. And so your marriage is a sign and wonder of the gospel of Jesus. As you live out a good Christian marriage, I'm trying to make it stop, but I can't figure out. I know if it's loud for us, it's loud at the other locations. So how would we live out the gospel in our marriage? Husbands get the opportunity, all right? Husbands get the opportunity to model for the world how Christ died for the church by sacrificing their own wants, their own needs, and their selfish ambitions for their bride. That's what Jesus did for us. And so we get to model this idea as husbands, and wives get to model to the world a church that is listening, that is loving, that is obeying everything that Jesus asks us to do. And now I get it. I can see the faces. Here we go. This is a wives submit moment and a husbands rule the world moment. But I want to tangent a little bit. So we're talking about these two relationship styles. So I just want to talk about what this is. It feels weird sometimes. We get this pit in our stomach when we think about women submitting and men being the authority in the relationship. But I want us to paint the right picture. Most of the time, what we're doing when we get that feeling is we're pointing to a stereotype more than scripture. We're pointing to a stereotype of what type of man demands obedience and what type of woman just keeps quiet and never says anything, right? We're pointing at these two stereotypes. And so let's think about it a little differently. Ladies, for those of you who are married or might be married, how easy would it be to submit to someone like Jesus? How did he interact with the church? Never demanding, never controlling. never manipulative, never making you prove your love to them before they love you. That's someone who's a little easier to follow when you think of those words, submit. And men, how easy would it be to give up, to lay down all of your own selfish wants, desires? How easy would it be knowing that you have a bride that would do anything to serve you well? Wouldn't it be easy to give up whatever you need to give up for someone like that? That's what it should look like. Your marriage can and should mirror the gospel. It's a sign and wonder to the world. And in the same way, singleness anticipates eternity. We've had a huge culture shift in the church as we think about singleness. Now, during when the Catholic Church was really on the rise before the Reformation happened, there was an emphasis on singleness. Being single was elevated. You are a better Christian if you're single. It's very different than the culture we put out today. It was literally, you were segregated. The single people sat closest to the sacraments, sat closest to the front and received the word first. And all those married people, the weak ones, the head to get married, they would sit in the back. And then the Reformation came, and I think just historically, Christians are very bad at going from one end and then letting this pendulum just swing to the actual opposite end. And all of a sudden, there became an emphasis on families and marriage. And it was the singles that were sent to the back and the married people that came to the front. And there was this interesting shift. But Jesus does not see singleness quite the same way. And so we need to learn what a healthy singleness is in our walk with Jesus. So Matthew 22, the same day Jesus was approached by, now I skipped a chapter, this wasn't the same day as the other question, I just want you to be aware of that. The religious leaders who say there is no resurrection from the dead, they pose this question. Teacher, Moses said, if a man dies without children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers. The oldest one married and then died without children. So his brother married the widow. But the second brother also died, and the third brother married her. This continued to all 7 of them. Last of all, the woman also dies. So tell us, they thought they had him. Tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? For all 7 were married to her. Jesus replied, your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures, and you don't know the power of God. For when the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. In this respect, they will be like the angels in heaven. So the idea of being single during the time of Jesus was very similar to kind of that pressure my grandfather had put on me. It's very known, like you get married, you pass your name down, all the way to the point where it would be your brother's problem if the name didn't get carried down. So it was pretty unheard of. It was something people pushed for to be married and arranged for their children. So it's easy to see why the religious leaders would have a bad theology and a mistaken view of eternity and even singleness. Jesus said in another translation, he said, you are in error. You don't understand how it works. You don't understand the power of God. In the end, everyone will spend eternity unmarried to man or woman and married solely to Jesus. And so those who are single, they're actually skipping forward. And they're not performing the sign and the wonder of Christ and the church, but they're showing the signs and wonders of eternity and what we have to look forward to when we reach the end. And there's a healthy singleness that we have not seen modeled in the church to where we could see it and say, man, that's what I have to look for. That's what I have. A moment where I know Jesus is enough. I don't need anything here on earth, but Jesus is enough. And all of a sudden we see now that singleness And it's not just for you. It's for the world. I love this by Pete Scazzaro, which a lot of this topic is taken off of Emotionally Healthy Leadership. So if you ever wanted to read a more in-depth chapter on this topic, you could read that book. But those who are single are able to express a devotion to God that married people cannot. I will always have a wife and kids here that I, rightly so, should be concerned for and loving for. And my greatest gospel opportunity is to my family. But for those of us that are single, your greatest and loudest gospel message is a healthy singleness. The first thing you need to realize, if there's a God-honoring way to view marriage, there's a God-honoring way to view singleness. The first is to realize this: you are not in a season of waiting. You're not in a season of waiting when you're single, all right? Single is a calling, not a consolation. It's not like, oh, I'm so sorry, you're single. Like, that's not the mindset that we need to have when you're single. Just to point the fact, right? We're all here worshiping Jesus and thinking, man, I just want to be more like him. If more of you means less of me, take everything, right? We sing these worship songs. I want to be just like Jesus. Well, Jesus was single his entire life. Paul, who wrote a good amount of the New Testament, was single and actually put an emphasis on it. In 1 Corinthians, he wrote this, and the band at all the locations can start to make their way forward. In 1 Corinthians, Paul wrote this: I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife. And his interests are divided. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affair. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, how she can please her husband. I'm saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in the right way. Undivided devotion to the Lord. Paul paints a pretty strong idea that singleness is not the consolation. That singleness is not a moment of, oh, we should really feel sorry for them. This is a sad moment for them. He's saying, no, listen, single people are able to express a devotion to God that married people cannot. And so instead of loving one person and family, you end up thinking through, who can I share the gospel with next? Who can I love in a healthy way? Who can I go to and say, hey, I don't actually need your love because I have the love of Jesus, but I want to give you the love of Jesus. So I just wanted to come and talk to you about that. There's a power in it because I can always say, man, I love God more than anything in the world. But I know that my wife deserves the most love in this world, and so I want to stay and stay devoted to her. I'll always have a divided view because I want to pour into my wife, and that's a right reason. I'm not talking down marriage. I'm trying to get us to stop talking down singleness. And there are two ways that we can be single, all right? There are vowed celibates, and those are people who have decided, hey, for my life, I am going to abstain from sexual activity. I'm going to just be focused on God. We think of that when we think of nuns or monks. I've decided I'm going to skip all the marriage and go straight to being married to Jesus. And just that's the moment that I'm going to live in. But for some of us, if not for most of us, there's another way of thinking about it. We are devoted celibates if you're single, meaning in your time of singleness, if it's for a season from divorce or death of a spouse, then, these people, we need to make an active decision to remain sexually inactive and to love others out of a healthy and full relationship with God. So in a minute, we're going to reflect, and Jason, if you want to cue up that chorus for us, we're going to reflect in just a moment. And so I want us to ask this question as we reflect. Look at your life. What season are you in today? What season has God placed you in today? Take a minute, pause, and think, am I giving a preview of God in my life to others? Whether you're single or married, am I giving a good preview? Do I understand the impact of my status? Do I understand the impact of my marriage? And as people look at it, is it previewing who God is? And do I have a healthy view of my singleness? Am I stuck in it, or am I in a good season of it? And is the way I'm living out my singleness a good preview of the eternity that we're going to spend? Because you are not in this season by accident. God has you perfectly placed to be His image at every stage of your life. So today, if you struggle to accept that season, I just think we got to lay down the unfair pressures that the world lays on us. You know, oftentimes it's always a give and take when you think about these two relationships. In the church world, there's a very interesting view that's unhealthy of both, and there's a pressure as pastors to view marriage incorrectly. When you're single, you're told, man, the best thing for your marriage, the best thing for your ministry is to get married. Then we can think about calling you a pastor, right? We teach this in the church accidentally. Man, that person, he's going to be a great pastor someday. She's going to be a great pastor someday as soon as they get married. But then when we get married, the idea is like, hey, just make sure you focus on ministry. Don't care too much about your family because your ministry is really important. And so if we're learning that, an unhealthy view of marriage, how are we teaching the church a healthy view of marriage and singleness as well?